Raw 4 TV. What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw 4 TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. All right, so let's get to this. Boy. So as we all know, Russell Westbrook announced his retirement yesterday after 18 seasons in the NBA. And whether or not he was your favorite player, whether you thought he was overrated or underrated, anybody with a pulse that does not have a covert, hidden, nefarious agenda would agree that he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And for the few that think that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, at the very least you will concede that he is a Hall of Famer. Although, to be honest with you, you're going to have a hard time explaining to me how Tracy McGrady is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but Russell Westbrook is not. So, of course, along with us reasonable human beings on this relatively warm August day, we'll come to the conclusion that Russ has sufficient numbers and achievements. League MVP, 2-time scoring champion, 3-time assist leader, if I'm not mistaken, 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-Star now. One of only 2 players with 25,000 points and 10,000 rebounds. 10,000 assists, excuse me. I believe he has the record for most rebounds by a point guard in a career. When you look at all of these achievements, Olympic gold medal, how is he not a Hall of Famer? But leave it to his number one hater to come out and come to some stupid-ass conclusion as to why he's not a Hall of Famer. So I listened to Skip Bayless's, reasonings as to why he's not a Hall of Famer. And it's the same, I had to kind of skip through this video. It was a 13-minute video. And it took him forever to get to his points, as it tends to do. I've been watching Russ ever since I've been naughty. Ever since he was in college. And, but it's the same shit. Oh, he only shot 31% for his career from 3. He was a volume scorer. He turned the ball over a lot. Not just turnovers, but demoralizing turnovers, as he put it. Didn't win. And, this is my thing, man. Number one, Russell Westbrook has a comparable assist-to-turn ratio to LeBron James. So if you got an issue with his tendency to turn over the basketball, then you should have an issue with LeBron James turning over the basketball. Matter of fact, James Harden has a worst assist-to-turn ratio. Has a worse assist-turn ratio. Last time I checked it, 1.88 to 1 turnover, where Russ is like 2.03 to 1 turnover. But nobody gives a fuck about James Harden turning the ball over, who, by the way, has led the NBA in turnovers a record 6 times. But magically, nobody cares when Harden turns the ball over. If I said Russ, I meant Harden has the record for most turnovers in the season. Leading the league in turnovers with 6. The inefficiency from downtown. Yeah, Russ was not a good 3-point shooter. Yeah, he wasn't. But so were a lot of Hall of Famers. Magic Johnson wasn't a good 3-point shooter. Statistically, even though it's misleading, Michael Jordan's not a good 3-point shooter, 32.7%, right? Although, that we've talked about how that number is misleading, right? So, look, Kobe Bryant statistically wasn't a good 3-point shooter, right? But we all know that they can nail 3-pointers and nail that shot when it really mattered. Russ always made players around him better. I've talked about that, right? Whatever players he was playing with, especially big men. Steven Adams was playing his best basketball playing with Russell Westbrook. Anthony Davis was an MVP caliber candidate during that period of time, or maybe it's too early for saying MVP, but because beginning of the season, but he was literally the best player in basketball. The beginning of the 2022-23 season, when LeBron was out with that little injury, and the media tried to downplay him and say, "Oh, well, the Lakers are playing against bad teams. They're playing against the Wizards, and the Pistons weren't really good at the time, so it doesn't matter," because it had to shit on Russell Westbrook and downplay Anthony Davis. We all know that he made Bradley Beal into a top 10 player in the league. Last time we saw James Harden look like James Harden in his prime, he was playing Russell Westbrook. We saw when he was playing Paul George, before he got hurt, was an MVP and Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Kevin Durant was winning MVP and scoring titles. He was playing with Russell Westbrook. LeBron James, that full season he played with Russ, averaged 30.3 points per game, playing with who else? Russell Westbrook. Nikola Jokic had his best season of his career playing with Russell Westbrook. Kawhi Leonard had all around perhaps his best season playing with Russell Westbrook. So you can't take that away from him. No matter how much you might dislike him, Skip. And I don't get this guy, his Kevin Durant love. I really don't get it, because if Kevin Durant wasn't on this if he wasn't on that overpowered Warrior squad, he wouldn't have won those championships. He wouldn't have won. Remember, I can't remember the stat, but I remember Chris Broussard put it out there. Remember when Kevin Durant was out, but Steph Curry was playing? Remember the Warriors would still have a ridiculous, great winning percentage as long as Steph Curry was on the floor, right? But when Steph Curry was off the floor and KD was playing, their win percentage was a little bit over 500. Remember that? Am I the only one that noticed that when KD was playing with Steph, it was Steph that was getting double teamed and not KD? And that's why KD loved playing with Golden State, because he was just facing single coverage where he could thrive. But the minute you double team him or put pressure on him, he folds like a lawn chair. Am I the only one that remembers that? Remember that? I was just talking about boys, Mark Tatum about this. When it was just Steph and not KD, the Warriors on pace to probably win 75 games. But when Steph was out and KD was playing, they were losing to, sorry-ass squads. Remember, before KD got hurt in 2019, the Warriors barely beat, I won't say barely beat, but they were struggling with the Clippers. Blew a 31-point lead. Even though KD would drop 50 points or 40 points, they were struggling with, teams they should be beating. Winning 58 games. in regular seasons when before without him they was winning 73 games. But then when KD got hurt, what did Steph do? He went out there and on the road he scored 20 of his 33 points in the second half on the road without KD. So it's like I don't want to hear nothing about this KD shit. I'm tired of hearing about Durantula. I'm tired of hearing about that dude, man. Because we've seen what happens when you put him on other teams when he's not playing with Steph Curry. At least Russell Westbrook would give you his all. That's one thing you can't take away from him. At least he would give you his all. Sure, he might go out there and shoot bad, but you never question his efforts and you never question his workload. And that's what defines a Hall of Famer. Got to really go out there and give it all he's got every single night, not fold like a bitch and say, my ankle hurts. Yeah, Katie, I'm talking about you. Skip Bayless is a cancer to sports, man. He is. Because he plays favorites. If you don't kiss this guy's ass, he's one of those journalists that Bobby Bonds and Barry Bonds were talking about. He's one of those journalists that Ricky Henderson didn't like. If you didn't kiss his butt, right, he would hold it against you. And he would judge you as an athlete based solely on how you treat him. Remember, Skip is from OKC. So I'm pretty sure at some point he interacted with Russ. And we know how Russ in his youth was pretty prickly with the media. He didn't like him, a lot of these guys. And for good reason. A lot of these guys are phonies. But they get to hide behind anonymity and, they get to hide behind, oh, my sources, which is really the voices in their head. So I'll say this. Skip, if you're this harsh about Russell Westbrook, about not winning and not, playing, not having championship DNA or the killer instinct, which we all know Russ does have killer instinct. But if that's your criteria, then keep the same energy for Dak Prescott when he retires. Cowboy fan. That's all I got to say about it. What you guys think?